And one thing I'm a big believer in is you need to really, it's in the scaling world. If you just take a look at how to scale a company, too many people think too small, right? And it limits their ability. If I'm only thinking about how to get to, I don't know, maybe $100 million a year, that's going to limit every single step I take in that action of getting to 100. If I have a $1 billion a year mindset or a $10 billion a year revenue mindset, everything I do is built behind that now. Every action I take is built behind how do I get to that level. And so we are in a hyper scaling mindset mode first, right? You have to start at the root of the mind, and then you have to start to build everything behind, is that possible? And so I think a 250 million revenue year, while it sounds like a lot compared to last year or to this year and looking at next year, I actually still think that's very small. I actually think we are in the proper space, and we have the proper tools, and we have the company built to do $1 billion in revenue. That it doesn't take very much at all to overnight see a couple of contracts change the entire trajectory. And I've seen this happen in other companies, and I've seen it actually happen in my own company. You know, when we launched a handful of products back in, you know, the 2018-19 timeframe, we didn't really quite realize how explosive that launch was until it happened, and pharmacies responded very well to it. And we went from, you know, we did hockey stick level stuff in a matter of a year to 2 years. I mean, really phenomenal business. Starting point of zero to an ending point 2.5 years later of almost 400 million in sales in 2.5 years from a starting point of zero. The evolution of any company that goes from $1 to 100 isn't usually just some, you know, special shebang hypey thing. It's executing on contracts, deals, M&A, all of the right things over time. It doesn't happen overnight, but it happens with time, and it happens with a very, very disruptive industry in all at once, right? So everything starts to change when the disruption of the industry and the solution for that disruption to the problem is created. Everybody starts to see that this is unlimited. This has unlimited potential. It has unlimited upside. And so, you know, we have the ability to fulfill, you know, $1 billion worth of drugs out of our warehouse right now. But what happens when that needs to be 10 billion worth of drugs? Okay, we're out there, you know, getting new facilities. The growth trajectory is all aligned with the industry and the problem and the disruption. So any stock that I look at these factors. I look at, is it all aligned? And I think we're very aligned. I believe that we're in the right place at the right time, and we're in an industry that has the ability to do it. It's not a TAM or a SAM or a SOM industry that is only, you know, whatever, maxed $1 billion. This has a max of $1 trillion industry that we're playing inside of right now.
Welcome, everybody, to Wall Street Reporter's next Super Stock live stream, where we bring you those stocks which have that 10x to 100x upside potential. Companies going after massive multi-billion-dollar market opportunities that are at a key inflection point and have multiple catalysts in place. We're back with Wellgistics, WGRX on NASDAQ, and the CEO, Brian. Brian, welcome back to the program.
Hey, Jack. Thanks. Good to be back.
Brian, so one of the things, you know, we talked about last time was, you know, how, you know, Wellgistics is really leading the transformation of the $600 billion pharma distribution market. I mean, it's a huge market that I don't think people are even aware how big the market opportunity is. You know, $600 billion. And, you know, you have, you know, you kind of have a unique business model with, you know, some unique competitive advantages where, you know, you again, right now, your company's at an exponential growth phase. And, you know, you have a track record for you know, creating massive growth. You touched on it last time. We want to talk about it again. But one thing that you mentioned, which I think, you know, really got my attention, I think people may have gotten the attention of people in the audience, is your vision for, you know, getting to $250, $300 million run rate in the next 12 months. Because I think that's a big deal that the market may not be aware of. And one of the things I'd like to talk about in this live stream and in the future is the path to get there. Because right now, you're on that path, and there's a lot of different elements, a lot of things happening. So the more we can explain, I think, the better the market will understand. I think people will see how this thing could be potentially, that $20 plus stock.
Sure. It's interesting because I do a lot of, kind of coaching as well to other entrepreneurs and other companies. And one thing I'm a big believer in is you need to really, it's in the scaling world. If you just take a look at how to scale a company, too many people think too small, right? And it limits their ability. If I'm only thinking about how to get to, I don't know, maybe $100 million a year, that's going to limit every single step I take in that action of getting to 100. If I have a $1 billion a year mindset or a $10 billion a year revenue mindset, everything I do is built behind that now. Every action I take is built behind how do I get to that level. And so we are in a hyper scaling mindset mode first, right? You have to start at the root of the mind, and then you have to start to build everything behind. Is that possible? And so I think a 250 million revenue year, while it sounds like a lot compared to last year or to this year and looking at next year, I actually still think that's very small. I actually think we are in the proper space, and we have the proper tools, and we have the company built to do $1 billion in revenue, right? Will I come out and say that's my projection or those are my goals? I have to be careful and sensitive to proper scaling, but my mindset is much higher than 250 million. Okay. I think we are in a critical catalyst position to be able to do that, frankly, quite easily. But it would be a significant growth on top of last year and on top of this year. So we will kind of set the conservative bar, if you want to call it, at 250. But I really do think that we could get to 250 with just a handful, 1 or 2 deals that we can strike direct with manufacturers and take a product direct to the marketplace, to the consumer. And
Right,
in that is all changing right now. The whole entire market is starting to change. And that manufacturers, the maker of drugs, they're all looking at the market differently. They're all starting to see how do we structure it in such a way to be able to take our drugs and potentially avoid the heavy cost and the heavy burden of having to price out the rebate game with PBMs, the employer games, the wholesaler games, and how do we cut through all of that and take our product directly to the consumer? And that's what Wellgistics does.
Brian, it's funny. It's funny. I was smiling when you started explaining the thing, because I guess you haven't seen. I don't know if you probably haven't seen our videos we do about the 10 bagger blueprint stuff. But one of the things I always say to investors, and this is based on the system, is if you want to have the stock that goes up, that's 100 bagger, you got to have the 100 bagger CEO, the 100x mindset, and that involves. You got to think big. I think the problem is, and I've said this many times, I think 99% of public companies, even public, think too small. That's the problem. It's if you think big, you're going to get there. It's like you got to think from the end, the end result. It's just as easy to think of building a $1 billion business as a $100 million business, right?
Well, I'll just tell you, Jack, it's actually harder. It's harder to build a small business than it is to build a big one. And it actually takes more work to fight all the battles of a small business than it does to fight the battles of a big one. When you have a ton of capital and a ton of revenue and a ton of profit, the business gets easier, right? You can hire out the best of the best. You can find the best sales guys. You can go out and actually acquire through M&A action. There's so much more you can do with a bigger company than if it's just this little burgeoning, struggling company you have to fight through every day. And so if I'm going to go do the same amount of work and put in 16-hour days like I'm doing right now, why not shoot for the stars? And if we hit the moon, we'll be really happy, right? That whole concept. We have all of the tools. We have all of the infrastructure. We're already doing it. All it boils down to now is landing the actual deals. Okay. We have a couple of competitors we've been watching carefully. And 2 years ago, one of our competitors, they were nothing. They literally had very little. They were just getting going. They landed one really good deal, and now they're probably on pace to do several billion a year, right? And
they scaled from 0 to several billion
in about less than 3 years. Okay, so and a lot of it had to do with the fact that they had private equity capital behind them, and they landed a very substantial deal that led them to land more deals because it proved to the others that they could do it. And so to me, I look at this and I say, we're in the exact same position, but better in that we have a better infrastructure, a better segue to capital based on the capital markets. We have a stronger distribution capability. We have all of these other elements that make us even more prime, right? So to land one deal or 2 deals or 5 deals next year that are deals I don't even know about yet. These are deals that can and will come to us. Those deals alone are each $100 million deals. These are substantial deals that we're talking about here. Some of them will be smaller and some of them will be exponentially larger. But what we're getting at is the infrastructure is ready to go, and we're already doing it in the effect that manufacturers need a solution. Employer groups are looking for a solution. Pharmacies are looking for a solution, and consumers are looking for a solution when it comes to their prescription drugs. The market is broken. Pure and simple, plain and simple, the market is broken. And that's happened through a whole litany of different reasons. But we step in to essentially fix the broken pharmaceutical drug movement market. That is our position. Our stake in the ground is that we are the rails of movement of a drug, digitally and physically. Okay, you need 2 parts to a drug movement. When a prescription is written by a doctor, how is that prescription routing to a pharmacy? How is it routing appropriately has a lot to do with the digital side of a prescription movement. Okay, how it is effectively monitored through, is it covered by the insurance? Is it not covered by the insurance? Is it on formulary or not? Is it cash pay or not? Does the insurance cover it, but only after you do all of these steps to get to it to cover? All of that is the digital side of hub services of managing a prescription and managing that patient. Then you have the over here on this side, you have the routing and the movement physically of a drug. We're all about AI. The whole market is screaming AI. We're doing huge AI improvements as well. And AI cannot physically move a drug. AI can't warehouse a drug. It can't put it in cold chain storage. It can't pick, pack, and ship it. Okay, AI doesn't do that until maybe an AI robot does it someday. Right now, we are the physical movement of a drug infrastructure combined, paired with the digital AI movement of what AI can do, which is significantly enhance the speed and the deliverable and the tools to help manage care, right? Questions about medications, getting triage through 80-90% of what a doctor can have AI do, and then the doctor can sign off on that final point.
Yep.
That's all the future of AI. Okay, we're all seeing this come. Huge valuations from groups that are out there doing physician-based AI, and that's coming. Like, that is happening. We will also help those physician-based AI programs and those companies route that drug appropriately to a pharmacy, and then the pharmacy will need the drug to then deliver to the patient.
And so last week you announced, was it HubRx AI? What can you, just a quick snapshot? What is that? Because I know you have a couple of AI growth initiatives. I mean, look, the idea is, I think Wellgistics is, I think you kind of been describing it as kind of like the next generation, pharma distribution company, like a McKesson, but the new generation of McKesson, which is multi-billion-dollar company, and you're using all these tools, whether it's AI, whether you're using XRP to reduce costs for all these pharmacies. Like, you have a lot of different, and all these things add up. Because I think the focus ultimately is cost savings. Is that right? I mean, ultimately,
right.
Your big, the big value you're delivering is those cost savings, which is the big thing you need, right?
Savings aimed, particularly right now, our hard focus is aiming all of the attention on the independent community pharmacy. And part of that is because the independent pharmacy is really the last case resort for local communities, rural communities, to get their prescription managed and cared for. Most people would prefer, and this is statistically proven, that most people would prefer a local community pharmacy customized approach to their prescriptions than going to, a CVS, right?
Oh yeah, sure.
Right. And so the local community pharmacy is getting pummeled right now, from the big boxes trying to just basically take them out, in my opinion. I think there's a lot happening that is against the local community pharmacies, primarily at the big PBMs that are creating a lot of havoc and harm to these pharmacies. So forever, my past 10 years has been all about how do we connect with and help the independent local pharmacy. Okay. Every day, a local community pharmacy closes its doors. Okay. That's the average, one per day. And so we want to keep the doors open of the independent pharmacy. And there's over roughly about 22,000+ independent community pharmacies throughout all.
It's Brian, not to be touchy-feely about it, but these local small pharmacies, it's kind of the heart of a lot of small communities. Like it really is. It's kind of like, you need to have these individually owned, these mom and pop businesses, because that's part of the texture. It's really part of the soul of these communities. And I think what you're doing is really, that's kind of their only hope.
Yeah. Like so many businesses, and I think a lot of people are familiar watching a lot of reels on TikTok and YouTube about how AI is at a point right now where so many of especially with the baby boomers that own businesses, okay? Everywhere you go in a local town, you're going to see all these little businesses that do perform, daily business actions that help serve the community. But none of them really understand how they can apply AI tools very well. So like the younger generation, these 20-year-olds who understand it are going into these businesses and helping them with AI tools. And so think of our HubRx AI program in multifaceted component, but it's like showing up on the job as a construction worker with a really good tool chest that all your key tools that you need to perform your job. Okay. Our AI tool chest program that we built through HubRx is essentially an engine that will ultimately allow for, let's look at the stakeholder of a pharmacy. It will allow a pharmacy to have a tremendous amount of a capable, actionable, very simple, via almost like a drop-down menu, to be able to create AI bots and AI programs that will enhance the operability, the interoperability, the sales and customer service, and connection to the physician and connection to the patient. It will allow for that pharmacy to choose to have tools to help them that AI will be able to dramatically help either increase their bottom line, help decrease their overhead. The tools that all of us kind of know are out there, but don't really know how to get to and use as a business. We're creating such a drag and drop functionality for our pharmacies that they will be able to use all of these tools to significantly enhance their business. Think of it like this. An example I could share would be like, if you registered a new domain today through GoDaddy, what does GoDaddy do once you register your domain?
They upsell you a bunch of stuff.
Upsell you, right? And part of that new upsell is, you want to create a website like that? Well, the AI tools allow you to, here's a logo, and here's how you structure it, and here's the color formats. And I don't have to be a programmer anymore to do that. I don't have to know HTML, and I don't have to know, I don't UI UX. I just drag and drop, and next thing I know, I got a pretty good looking website. Now, it's not deep and professional and crawled and doesn't have all of that SEO behind it, but it's a nice enough website that in 15 minutes, I can have a fully functional website that somebody can type in and go to. AI is going to be doing that to businesses across the spectrum: healthcare, pharmacy, local mom and pop shop. It doesn't matter. This is all coming. And what we're doing is we're getting in front of it and saying, here are tremendous tools we're going to create for the pharmacy to use. Next, we're going to move to employer groups and interoperability of connectivity of prescriptions. We're going to move to ways that we can help physicians. We're going to move to ways to help manufacturers. All of this is coming, and we have to build the base, the infrastructure, the toolbox first, which engineers behind is the engine behind all of it, you know. And then once it's created, now it just becomes very seamless and very easy to use those tools. So HubRx is going to be a really great hub spot for all the stakeholders to participate in having access to tools that will help their business in the healthcare sector. We too, as a company, need those tools. So inside of our own company, we have tremendous amount of need for hub services through routing and helping the managed care side of the patient. And what happens if a patient we're working with on their drug has an adverse side effect? What happens if it doesn't work, or if they have issues that they need to change, or if they need to change strength? All of those things become managed care side of a prescription, okay? That's hub services, okay, which is a division of our company that has revenue and profitability attached to it all day long. And there's huge demand out there for hub services in the healthcare space, okay? When you link the hub services component, call it again the digital side of things, to now a physical component of the actual drug, many companies are this, but they're not this, or they're this, but they're not this. We've created an ecosystem where we're both, right? We're merged into each other in a way that both can drive independent revenue, but simultaneously together operating to be able to bring more enhanced care, faster care, better cost to everybody in the stakeholder process.
Brian, here's the thing, yeah, very important. Like today, so we're kind of today we got a limited time, but I want to focus on the most important point of this whole video, this whole live show, which I think is the most important thing, which I always emphasize over and over again, like a million times. You know, again, we have like 10 criteria for finding stocks to become 10 baggers, the whole thing. The number one thing, and the one thing which we have no control over, is the CEO quality, right? And one of the most important things, which is, you know, you got to have that big vision for growth, because if you think from the end results first, what do they call it? First principles thinking. I think what Elon Musk calls it. You know, how do we build a $1 billion? If you think that, you come with the solutions, right? So the fact that you know, like the fact that you that's the way you think. It's very rare. You know, I've talked to thousands of CEOs. It's very rare for somebody to actually say, you know, I don't want to build a $100 million business. We're going to build $1 billion, but a $1 billion business. But also the fact is, you actually have a track record. You went from 0 to 200 million with your previous company in 2 years, right?
Yep.
So, and what I find very interesting also is, so again, it's not a, you know, this is not a guy who just talks and it's hot air. No, this is a guy with a track record. But also psychologically, which I think is, which we didn't really talk about, is also, I think, which you mentioned, and then it was, oh shit, this is actually a good thing. So you were actually like a serious athlete, right? You were like not a professional wrestler, but like almost, right? Like you've done like serious stuff. And I think people who do that stuff, they're very, very disciplined. And if they say, hey, we're going to go after a goal, they actually do achieve that goal. So it's not talk. They actually do. They're like, so give a snapshot. We'll wrap up on this, because I think your background, the psychological background, is extremely important for people to understand, like, you know, what's inside your head. So what do you do with your athletic background?
Yeah, I always look at, you know, what I look at when I invest in a company. If I'm looking at a CEO, what am I looking for? What kind of qualities do I want to see in that CEO? And yes, a track record, a history, a deep knowledge of the industry, that's very important. But, you know, can that CEO manage the hard times is usually one of my bigger questions. And can they get through the hard times? And can they, you know, what do they do when they're on their back or they're up against the wall? How do they perform? You know, can they operate under, you know, pressure? And, you know, I think that's, historically speaking, looking at the past, you know, this year so far, we've had a lot of headwinds we've had to fight. You know, we've had a lot of things that have come against us, and we've done a tremendous job. Me and my incredible team have done a tremendous job in being able to fight those headwinds and continue to move past, you know, the obstacles in the space that any, you know, newly minted IPO, I think, faces, and continue to put ourselves in a deeper and deeper readiness position to be able to really explode. And that's where we're at right now, is we are, you know, talking to a lot of very, very significant players and looking at doing some very significant deals that, you know, can't be promised, but are very hope-based right now, that we work very hard to move to the next levels, right? These are These are large deals that take a tremendous amount of time and effort and team to get done. You got legal, you got financial, you got business sense, that all has to come together under the same roof.
And you're talking about new products. These are for new products for
Correct.
distribution,
Yeah.
right?
New products, new therapies, new markets. Correct. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And so, isolating just a handful of therapies with a handful of products in the marketplace that are in high demand, and us being able to service that marketplace. It's not just some little local community we service. It's the entire country. We're all 50 states. So when we look at anything, we look at the national footprint. We don't look at a local Ohio footprint. We look at the entire US. And so when we service a drug for a manufacturer, we take it all the way. And so the scaling mindset, I look at it like the attitude of a lion. You wake up every day and you gotta run faster than the fastest gazelle. You gotta hunt, and you've got to be out there fighting every day and hunting. Me and my team, we are what I call wartime CEOs, right? We're a team, a C-suite of wartime. We're not peacetime. Okay. This is not peacetime to me. This isn't, we're already an established $100 billion company, and I've been brought in to be the CEO to help, manage the morale of the company. I'm here to fight against a very broken system. And the system is broken, and the entire country sees how broken it is. And as such, I become a wartime CEO, and I have to fight every day in the trenches. But in doing so, we make great strides, and we have huge upside potential to what we can become if the investors believe in us. If those who are listening, trust and believe that we can do this and we will do this, then we're going to be just fine. We're going to do really, really, really well. And what I think you call it, a 10-banger, all that stuff.
10-bagger, yeah. No, listen, Brian, I don't want a 10-bagger. We've already had so many. We need another 100-bagger. I need a 100-bagger. Brian, I need you to make this a 100-bagger. And here's the thing. All kidding aside, no, if you want to make it happen, you could make it happen, right? Like, if you have the vision to do it, if you focus, okay, what would it take for Wellgistics to be a $100 stock? Somebody has to do it, right? I mean, it's not, it's one step at a time. You just launch a bunch of new products, right? Each of these deals you're looking at, each of these new product distribution deals could be, you're saying, potentially a multi-$100-million deal, right? Like you just gave an example. This private equity backed company, they went from zero to several billion, right?
Correct. Yeah, it's all there. That's the thing, is we're in pharma, okay? We're not, I think I said this last time, we're not selling some widget. I don't have a newly, invented vacuum that we're taking public, and we're in pharmaceuticals where there's so much inside of the healthcare pharma system and so many stakeholders at play here. Think about it. You've got a manufacturer, okay, with extreme needs right now to deliver their product to the marketplace. Okay. You've got employer groups who have an extreme need to carve out very expensive drugs and to save money per month and per year. Okay. There's extreme need there. You have independent retail pharmacies, extreme need to really, on all levels, get better pricing, get better enhanced care, get more deliverable of prescriptions to their doorstep that they can dispense for patients. And you have a consumer marketplace that is really, really hurting right now and is more interested in looking than ever at cash alternative methods to getting their drugs, versus just using their insurance.
I find, Brian, what I find compelling, I think, for investors, one of the big takeaways is you're only one step away from basically a transformational revenue opportunity. You're basically one of these deals, one of these new drugs that you put into your pipeline. You go from the 20 million that you have to a couple $100 million or more, like overnight. No?
Yeah, I mean, that's the power of what I'm saying, is that because there's such a need in a pharmaceutical marketplace with so much demand and volume, that it doesn't take very much at all to overnight see a couple of contracts change the entire trajectory. And I've seen this happen in other companies, and I've seen it actually happen in my own company. When we launched a handful of products back in the 2018-19 timeframe, we didn't really quite realize how explosive that launch was until it happened, and pharmacies responded very well to it. And we went from, we did hockey stick level stuff in a matter of a year to 2 years. I mean, really phenomenal business. Starting point of zero to an ending point 2.5 years later of almost 400 million in sales in 2.5 years from a starting point of zero. And this is the nature of the industry when it catches on to a very attractive proposal that you can help service them and help them, right? All stakeholders get serviced and helped to win each step of the way. And so because that demand is so strong, and because there's so many manufacturers that have needs to commercialize their drugs, we step in as a very good solution right now in a very broken space. So is the opportunity there? 100%. Are we executing? Absolutely. Do we have all the tools and the infrastructure in place? Yes. This is really coming down to a matter of closing deals and getting these deals completed so that we can, take these larger opportunities to market that are kind of all sitting there waiting for us to grab hold of. Okay. So this is where we're at a really great inflection point.
Yeah, I get the sense that you're a closer, so I'm not worried about that. And here's the deal. So the bottom line, the takeaway, I think, is this for investors. Look, the 200 million you mentioned, 250 million run rate in the next 12 months, hitting that run rate. At next live stream, I want to get into the details of the products, everything. I want to really get into the weeds. But if you only need one of these deals to get to 250 million, and again, you hit that run rate in the next 6 to 9 months. Yeah, that would give the company at least a 5x multiple. So it's a $1 billion plus valuation, which would essentially basically make the stock from here a 10x from here. And that's a starting point. That's a starting point. I don't think you're going to be happy or satisfied if it's only $15 a share. That's not going to be I think your goal is to make it like I would hope at least $100 stock. No, that would be a good number.
Yeah. Look. You have to look at the evolution of any company and how they go from $1 to 100. The evolution of any company that goes from $1 to 100 isn't usually just some, special shebang hypey thing. It's executing on contracts, deals, M&A, all of the right things over time. It doesn't happen overnight, but it happens with time, and it happens with a very, very disruptive industry in all at once, right? So everything starts to change when the disruption of the industry and the solution for that disruption to the problem is created. Everybody starts to see that this is unlimited. This has unlimited potential. It has unlimited upside. And so, we have the ability to fulfill, $1 billion worth of drugs out of our warehouse right now. But what happens when that needs to be 10 billion worth of drugs? Okay, we're out there, getting new facilities. The growth trajectory is all aligned with the industry and the problem and the disruption. So any stock that I look at these factors. I look at, is it all aligned? And I think we're very aligned. I believe that we're in the right place at the right time, and we're in an industry that has the ability to do it. It's not a TAM or a SAM or a SOM industry that is only, maxed $1 billion. This has a max of $1 trillion industry that we're playing inside of right now. We're asking for a tiny, tiny market share of $1 trillion space. And I think we will get that. I very, very strongly believe that we will be able to do that over the next year to 2 years.
No, again, Brian, you're saying all the right things, because I really like one of the big things we need to have for these stocks to go up 10x, 100x is you got to be in the right space, the industry that's exploding with massive opportunity, and you got to have the right company, the right model. And when you combine those two, it's explosive. Brian, here's what I need you to do. We're gonna have you execute. We're gonna have you in the next edition of the 10-bagger blueprint. We're gonna have a case study, but you got to be 100x. The stock has to hit $100, and this is gonna be the case study. It's because we need to have that. So far we only have 10s, 50. We've had a few, but you could be the 100-bagger.
I love it. I'd be happy to be your case study, Jack, in your next book.
Fantastic. And then we'll have you teaching the class, the 100x CEO Academy. Other public company CEOs. We're going to create a generation of 100x CEOs from you. So thank you again, Brian.
Great. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us. We'll see you in the next one.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.